My name is Dan Fredo. I'm the superintendent of schools with the Great Valley School District. And this really is, I believe, our third installment of a parent engagement series regarding the construction project of our 5-6 center, and then also the implications it has here for the KD Markley and broader campus. So as you can see, as you pulled up, there's a lot of earth being moved. The project is on schedule. We're very excited, and we do anticipate the opening of our new school in August of 2024, and so we're off to a really good start. And so tonight's purpose is really to bring you up to speed with where the project is currently, where some of the next steps are headed. And so we have a lot of different team members who are here this evening. And we have Dr. Conference. Many of you know he's our principal of KD Markley. We have Jen Blake, she's set up tonight. She's our director of communications. And then we have some other team members who are here on the construction side and the architectural side of the project. And so we have Damien Spar, who's seated here at the Brown. Damien is with SiteLogic. They are a construction management company who really is here every day, and they're monitoring not Damien, but members of his team are here every day, and they're monitoring the site. And you'll hear from Skylar and the others regarding some of the progress that's been going on. We also have David Schrader. David Schrader is from the Schrader Group. They are the architectural firm that designed our 5-6 center. And so this team has really been working together for the better part of a year to really get to where we are here today. So we're going to start off, we're going to give you a brief overview of how we got to this point in time, and Mr. Schrader will provide that. And then Damien Spar will get up and he'll go over the construction phases, where we're headed, where things are right now. We have some questions that came in, and we're going to be sure to address those. Thank you to those who emailed Ms. Blake your questions. We'll make sure we answer those. And then we'll open it up for a more broad question and answer session at the very end. All right? So again, welcome. Thank you all for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Schrader.
Well, great. Thank you, Dr. Fredo. So as Dr. Fredo said, what I will try to do is to give you a sense of what this project is intended to be when it's done. And then what you'll have is Damien's going to talk a little bit about what you see out there today, what you may see this fall, and then what to expect as time goes on. So I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the 5-6 center project. You've probably been receiving emails and information about it. So we thought we would move through it just briefly to give you a sense of what it's going to be like when it's done. So I'm going to orient you a little bit. That is Sweetsburg Road, and this is Church Road. And so what you're familiar with today is where KD Markley sits on the site right here. This is the driveway currently that both buses and cars come in, and you probably drove in here and found your way into this parking lot. What happens today, though, as you know, is buses come in here, take a left-hand turn, go around a loop, well, actually they drop off, and then they go around a loop and come back out here. The intent for the future of this project, when the 5-6 center is built here, which I'll go over briefly in a moment, is to have separate bus parking for KD Markley that comes in here, and that is offset from the parent drop-off drive on Sweetsburg. The whole intent of that is to separate the car and the bus traffic so that you both don't cross when you're trying to drop students off in the morning. So that's going to be the bus drop-off for KD Markley. This is going to be the bus drop-off for the 5-6 center. So what you've been seeing get built here is you're seeing the grade come up in this area to allow for the buses all to pull in front of the school there. Kids will offload here for 5th and 6th grade and come into the building from this side from the buses only. So the intent in the end, though, is that the parent drop-off for the 5-6 center comes in here, and that is right in front of what will be the new main office. And at the same time, or actually it's at an offset time, but in the same way, parents will come in for drop-off for KD Markley like you do today, pull up to the point that they tell you to pull up to, and drop your student off on the right-hand side. So the whole intent of the site here is that parents and drop-off and parking are in the center, and bus driveways are pushed off to the periphery just to try to separate all that. So this little area right here is the existing, or the old district administrative building as you know it. It actually is shown here without the side wings, and Damien's going to tell you a little bit about those side wings today as well, talk about where they've gone. The building will be a two-story structure around that, with classroom clusters in the perimeter, and this area that sits up here is going to be the dining space, the gymnasium, the main office, and so on. So, whether you know it or not, across Sweetsford Road, all the way down to the Chester Valley Trail, that's the trail right there, the district owns this entire piece of property. And if you've gone to the piece of property and walked down the mowed area that goes down here, you'll notice that there's what we call a detention or retention basin down there to collect the water that currently comes off the site from the existing building and the parking over here. So because we're expanding the building size, we're adding 2 stormwater basins here, and Damien's going to talk to you about that as well. So I think, Damien, that probably talks about the basic intent of the site. And if we just go to the next step here, you can start to see this is Church Road, that's Sweetsford Road, and you can probably start to make out that parking area, drive-through area that you saw in the last image. There's the bus loop turned around for KD Markley. There's the bus loop for the 5-6 Center. And here's that building sitting adjacent to KD Markley. You can see the entry point up here, kind of bridging the gap between these 2 structures. Next one. This is a view as if you were in a drone from Church Road. This gives you a sense of the existing building. There are the 2 bus drop-off areas, and then the parent drop-off areas up here with the main entry for the secure entry point. And then these are the 2-story classroom wings around the periphery. I'm going to spin this one more time in these images. Now you're looking at that parent drop-off here, the bus drop-off areas here. These are classroom clusters, and that's 2 stories, which Damien just showed there. This is the library media center area, and everything in orange is the existing administrative building converted to, we'll call them STEAM spaces. So it's science, technology, art spaces, and so on, all backed up to the library and all accessible from each of the classroom clusters. Next one. Go ahead. So what you see here is the transition between the design and what we intend to have in 2 years' time here, and what Damien's going to talk to you about, which is today and the next couple of months and next spring. So what we intend to have in place, and Dr. Hopperts may speak a little bit more about this, but what we intend to have in place is the bus parking reversed, and you can kind of see it out there today with the curving that's already outlining the new circulation there. And in the next couple of days, you'll see the new parking lot start to take shape over here. You can already see the flat area that actually kind of climbs the hillside a little bit there. That's going to have curving going in shortly and then blacktop. And we will probably have the balance of this area open for students. And everything will be contained in this area for your students as they come to school. And everything outside of this area, everything back here, is going to be construction territory. And Damien's going to speak a little bit to that as well. We are trying our best to try to get a basketball area or hard surface area in back here for the early parts of school. And we're going to try to relocate the KD Markley playground as it stands so that those 2 points are available for kids for recess. And we're going to try to get those in as quickly as we can. So everything in the red line is going to be accessible for the students and you folks, and everything behind that is going to be accessible for the contractors. Damien, take it away.
Thank you, David. Hi, I'm Damien Spar. I'm the program executive for Site and Logic. And one of the things, as we start to talk through this, it's going to be said at the end, but I think it's worth saying at the beginning of all this. We've set up really good communication tools so that if you have questions, if you have concerns, you'll see it at the very end. We have not only the website, we have an email address, and we have a phone number. And I can assure you that those phone calls and emails make it very quickly to my desk and to my email. So if there's a problem, if you have questions, I think our average answering something has been a half a day or something like that. It's pretty quick for us to get back to you. We want to remember that our site here is a school first, and a construction site second. is, as we put more hard surface over here, we pipe that stormwater underneath the road, through the ball field here, and then out into these detention areas. And it doesn't all fit nicely on one slide, so you can see it on one big photograph. But this is a couple of weeks ago, because we do drone shots about once a month, and there's significant progress, as there is here. At the KD Markley site, this whole bus area now is modified. You'll see pictures in a moment. There's parking lots that are outlined here that'll be paved right before school starts. And you'll see what's happening. There's been removals of the wings next to the historic portion of the former district administration office. You can start to see that we have roads cutting behind the school. And as you imagine, and go back to this slide, you'll see that we've kind of got this whole construction area that we're starting to demarcate from KD Markley. Now, the other thing that you need to know is we are going to continue to pull that fence away from KD Markley to give the kids more and more space at every opportunity that we have. We'll never create a condition that's unsafe, but we always want to give the kids as much play area as we can. So, for example, and we'll talk a little bit about playgrounds later, this playground equipment is due to be here at the end of August, beginning of September. So we're going to work really hard with the contractor to get that new playground installed as quickly as we could. We couldn't have it before the start of school, but we're going to get it as fast as we can. We're working to get the basketball court installed here. As soon as we do, that fence is going to go out around the basketball court, and we're going to include that for the kids. So, and Dr. Hoffertz has different plans that he's been working on for quite some time to be able to have recess during the day in parts of the bus parking area where there's no other cars and there's blacktop for kids to play on, etc. So we intend on this being kind of the most constrained condition for KD Markley kids and family, and it will become less constrained as time goes on, and you'll start to see that release as early as the fall. So, as we continue from here, I'm going to start to pick both these sections of the site apart a little bit so you can see what we've done and where we're headed. And here, this is the work that's happening with stormwater basins. There was an existing one that needs really to be repaired. This is a new one that's been dug, and then there's an additional one there. Skylar Gingrich in the orange shirt, he's on site for Site Logic all the time. Mike Crane sitting in front of him in the black shirt. Mike is our project manager, and he's going to be spending a lot of his time on site, really starting in September sometime. So as the building goes up, there's kind of more folks from our staff there. Folks from Dave Schrader's office are out often, and we actually even have other folks that are coming out and working hard to make sure that we're coordinated among the contractors and kind of keeping everything back from KD Markley. So I have that right, Skylar, that this is the last one that has to be worked on. And one of our friends, Rock, is under that area, so we'll be working on that, communicating with neighbors as we start to work there. All of this work will be completed in the fall, and we will get to restoring the field here. As you can see, we had to cut those pipes through this field, and so once we bored under the road, we connected, and then we dug up the field, put the pipes in. Now we'll put that back, get the field back seeded this fall, so that hopefully next summer sometime, or later next fall, that field's going to be open again. We're going to work with the district and see if there's ways for us to be able to use parts of the field just for play areas, even though you might not be playing baseball or a football game there. You'll at least have some part of that field back as soon as we keep it too. In the fall, we'll reinstall the batting cage, and we'll be installing fencing around the bases. Wherever we can, we're going to start to remove fencing, both on this side and the other side, as we kind of work through our construction phase. So, on the KD Markley site, what we're doing right now is we're completing this bus drive area. You'll see progress photos where the buses now come in at one location, turn here, loop around, come in front of the building and go back out. So all the buses are really coming in one area instead of sharing different entries and exits as they have in the past. Really, current practical design is to separate pickup and drop off cars and pickup and drop off the buses. So that's being constructed now. And that's for KD Markley to be used right away at the start of school. And for the 5-6 center, that bus pickup and drop off will be here with a commingled automobile pickup and drop off for both buildings that will happen in this area in the future. So what you're seeing is that bus drop area, the parking area is being completed. We are also, in this picture, actually only 2 weeks ago, there were parts of the old district administration office that were still standing. They're gone now. The non-historic wings of the building have been removed, and now we're removing the foundations from those areas as well. So that's happening as really on a daily basis as we speak. We're preparing the building pad for where the new building goes in this area. What that means is we're bringing the grade up so that we can start to dig for foundations. We'll have a nice flat area, and then we'll be able to dig for foundations, put those foundations in, piers, and be ready to start bringing steel up out of the ground. We're preparing for a new basketball court in this area. We're hoping to have that in around the start of school so that we can start to give that back to KD Markley kids. And as I noted before, we're looking at removing this playground and really putting it back with new equipment and things. That should be really fun for the kids when we get that open here in the fall. The last part of the slide. So this fall, you're going to see foundations going in at the new building. There's going to be continued limited site work, but it's not going to be anything like you've seen this summer. So we will be careful and thoughtful about where we have to do site work, whether it's near KD Markley itself or whether it's around other neighbors. That'll be relatively limited. And something that really gave me a thrill because I didn't think it would be this quick, we're going to start to see steel deliveries on site in late October, early November. So you're going to start to see the building start to rise up instead of just seeing a flat dirt and stone landscape. These are progress photos. You'll see on the left side here how we were removing the non-historic structure as a part of the old district administration office that remains. We have a large stormwater detention basin that's put in near KD Markley. That'll get a fence around it, and it'll start to get groomed and set up so that it will look a lot nicer than what is depicted here. These are photos of the bus drive progress at the entry to KD Markley. This was before we had done sub-base. Now you can start to see where that is. This is taken from that outer loop looking back toward the building. That's going to be prepared and ready to go for the time school starts. On the left is a lot of excavation that's happened at the stormwater detention basin across Sweetsburg. And on the right side, where we had to come across the road, we have tunneled under the road and worked around the utilities there. There was a water line surprise that we were not aware of because it wasn't shown in some of the documentation. So we were kind of working through that, but we bored through and underneath the road because we wanted to do our best not to have to shut that road down and cause traffic snarls as the summer went on around KD Markley. Now, this slide was set up to work for you folks and to work for teachers as well. So I'm going to talk through both pieces of it. When teachers return, critical things, and some of them will apply to parents and families, when there's entry only from Sweetsburg Road now. There's no more entry from Church Road. So that's something different and something that you're not used to from last year. For teachers, the first week, the teachers will park here near KDM, and then when students come back, this parking lot will be paved. Teachers will park out here as well. And then importantly, for those of you that are dropping off and picking up your kids at KD Markley, we're going to take the pattern that you see here turning in to the lot and following this queue line around and out. And the reason that we do that is when we bring the cars off of Sweetsford and queue them in the parking areas and the parking aisles, we don't have the backup on Sweetsford Road. So we're expecting, and this is all a little bit of theory, but we're expecting that this is going to make a big difference. Now, I say that it's theory because we have a good plan, but plans need to be modified a little bit and checked and then see how they impact everyone and adjusted. So we're expecting to have to do that over the first few weeks of school. And as you see over here, there's going to be signs and cones and personnel and people available to say, no, be over here, don't be over in that location, to help the teachers know where to be, etc. So when you come in to drop off, you're going to turn right or left from Sweetsford in here, come back the road that you're used to coming back to come that way, and make a right into the new parking area, be in that drive aisle and go through that area, and then make a left, another right, another left, and then a right, so you're kind of out where the driveway was that came up from church. Now, instead of being able to go back down to church, there you're going to make a left, and that's going to take you to pick up a drop-off area, left again, and then right to go out to Sweetsford. Yes, sir.
I was going to save the question for the end, but it's directly related to
Sure.
the slide. So Dr. Hofford's knows, yeah, wow. Yeah, no, okay. So our daughter uses a wheelchair, so you know which question I'm asking, so if you just want to address it. It's where children with disabilities have traditionally used the bus lane and shared it, so same place, okay, that's fine.
You'll get a message, correct?
Yeah. Sorry.
Good question.
Thank you for asking. It's a separate, the main population, that's what we're doing, but anyone with any inventory issues, they will be coming right back where we were last year through that bus loop, and you'll get letters from whoever you're working with, whatever teacher, to talk about that specifically. But for the main group, that's a queue line, and it's a fantastic queue line. That parking lot is large, and we feel like we get several hundred cars, 150, 200 cars through there. But anyone with inventory issues, just like we did adjustments last year, that worked really well. If she's still working, we just come through the bus line. Yep. Great question.
thank you. That was really well placed right here. And I'm appreciative because that was a detail that I didn't know about. So thank you for asking that. So, and actually, before we go on, because this is so very important, does everybody understand what we're looking to do with pickup and drop off from parents or comment? We're really hoping this alleviates the queuing on Sweetsford Road. But again, be patient with us. We're going to work through this a little bit and make sure that we can do our best to make it easy on everybody, make it efficient to get through, but keep the cars off Sweetsford. So this is the last bit of talking that we're going to do before questions and answers. What we wanted to do was talk about the things that are going to happen in the fall and the things that will happen in winter and spring, because it gets more and more constrained back to the building site as we go. So in the fall, as we know, we're going to complete the work across Sweetsford Road. We're going to install the new playground equipment, get that playground set up as quickly as we can so that the kids can be out there and don't have to be in other places. We're going to start the foundations of the new building. And Skylar, do we know what the date is for start of foundations? Is that in September?
Yeah, the first week of September.
Okay. So you're going to see a lot of people and workers over that site, but you won't see anything starting to come up until the end of October, start of November, when we start steeling, as I said. Little bits of site work here and there, but being really thoughtful about not being too close to KDM and how we're working and being good neighbors. As the winter comes into spring, we're going to continue that structural work, and then at some point you're going to start to see the building exterior come to shape and really start to do the things that you're expecting the building to do. You've got the frame, and then you start to get the walls, and then all of a sudden it will seem like not much happens, and all the work will start to be in the building, and we'll be waiting for a couple of things to come for the outside of the building, and then transformations happen, and things get cleaned up, and all of a sudden we're in 2024, and your kids are coming from this building, maybe going to that one for 5, 6, and they will have a beautiful place to be. So we're really excited about what we're doing. We just met with the neighbors. We got some really nice comments from the neighbors about really being good to them and keeping things in a good situation in terms of noise, in terms of dust. And we intend to do that for the kids at KD Markley, for the teachers and staff, and really to make your kids' experience here not one that's disrupted by construction, but maybe ultimately will be enhanced now. When I was a kid, I'd sit in class and I'd look out the window and I wouldn't pay attention to the teacher because my Tonka toys were out there in the middle of the building, and that was cool. So we're going to work with the district because if we start to have those types of issues, we have the ability to put up visual barriers, etc. But there's some really great learning experiences from being back a safe distance, but proximate to a construction site. And I've said this actually in a couple of discussions I've had when we were building an elementary school or middle school. Sometimes your kids see this and it starts to point them in a career, whether it's architecture or engineering or something in the trades. These are the types of things that really evoke things in kids' minds. I think it's really cool, but we want to make it not so cool that it distracts from the educational mission. So please let us know through all the appropriate means of communication, talking to Dr. Hoffertz, whatever it may be, if you're seeing issues that we have to deal with. We are here to make sure the kids' education comes before the construction process. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to turn it back over to Dr. DeFredo. Questions?
Amy, thank you very much. If you don't mind, could you go back? I do want to address the 7-acre parcel. Partway through the project, 7 acres on the back of KD Markley was acquired. And so I want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. Original design was really to maintain the existing footprint of KD Markley and the district office. But as we'll illustrate, the additional 7 acres, which is a large rectangle of property at the back of KD Markley, was acquired after we began the project. It really became a tremendous enhancer for our design, and it really opened up a lot of the green space that our students are going to be able to take advantage of. There's 2 things I'd like to highlight with that 7-acre property. One, there is an existing home on the tract of land, and that home is set to be removed at some point next week. So that will occur before our students are here. I am told that will be a 1-day project. They'll come in, they will remove that entire property, that entire house from the property. Additionally, one of the requirements that the district needed to agree to with East Whiteman Township was the addition and the creation of a trail that links to the Chester Valley Trail. And Damien can highlight where that is currently proposed to run. Our original design had it on the very back of KDM's property. However, you can see the large rectangle that we purchased. And so now, with this large property, the trail is proposed to be pushed back. There have been no final determinations with the trail. It is something that is required by East Whiteman Township. Certainly, as a school district, we would prefer not to have a trail running on property, but it was a condition in order for us to get site approval to move forward with the project. So there is much more to be determined on the precise location of that trail. That will be discussed through our East Whiteman Township meetings. We'll certainly continue to be there, and I would advise parents also staying tuned to see where things land with the progression and installment of that trail. So I did want to highlight, I think this is a terrific slide that really illustrates those 7 acres and how that's going to be a wonderful enhancement to this footprint. So, Damien, thank you for addressing that. Ms. Blake, I know we had a few questions come in advance, and we're happy to go through those maybe first, and then we'll open it up to other questions. A few of you, thank you. You submitted some questions prior.
So we did receive questions from parents who couldn't be here with us tonight. The first was, as a parent of a kindergartner, I'm becoming aware of the 5-6 center for the first time. I'd like to know the key objectives to building this center and how my 5-year-old
Mr. Schrader and his team did an excellent job. We had a lot of input. We had a lot of community input. As a matter of fact, we met in this very space, in this very school, a while ago to get input on the design. Really, there were a couple of key elements that we feel that the physical learning space is going to benefit both the students and the staff. One is just the infusion of natural light. Many of us, as I looked at the room, we attended more traditional schools, long cinder block hallways, very limited light. Like if you were in a classroom, you had windows, but once you ventured into the hallways, there was no natural light, there was no penetration of light. We've really worked on a design that is just engaging, it's open, it's fresh, it's invigorating, and not only for our students, where they can go out in the large common spaces and collaborate, but so can our staff. And so that's really important. We want the staff to be able to come in. The building also has a lot of flexible design. We'll make sure we highlight this more in some future presentations, where we have movable partitions, open spaces where students can collaborate and learn. Really at early ages, particularly in grades 5 to 6, we think starting to develop those skills is critically important as they start to move into middle school and high school. So a flexible design, one with a lot of natural light, one that is also very communal. As Mr. Schrader illustrated, it is set up with a series of pods or houses. So you can take a large school where 8, up to 9 students can attend, and they're really going to spend most of their time in common areas with 4 or 5 classrooms. As perfect, Amy, thank you. You can see how these blue clusters are represented, where you'll have 4 classes in an area around one common space. And so we really think this really sets a communal or a family feel for students. Even though they're attending a large school, it's going to give them a small school feel. So we really felt that was important. At the same token, within each of those classrooms, we have carve-out spaces where students who receive specialized services can get those services directly in their classroom. Many of us, when I went to school, if I required special services fee, I had to leave my classmates, go to a different part of the building and receive that service. We really, here at Great Valley, and a lot of districts, want to get away from that model. It's all about including students, and so now we have spaces where those students can receive those services within the classroom, they can stay within their peers, specialized instructors can go in, they can observe, they can support, so that students are not separated. That's very important to who we are as a district and our belief system, and when we had the opportunity to design a school, we absolutely had to seize that opportunity. So I have viewed this much more as just a building or a school. It really enhances the way we instruct, the way we collaborate, the way we teach, and ultimately, the way people feel about going to school, the way our students feel, the way our staff feel. So I'm excited. This is going to be a shining star for us, a point of pride for the district, because all that we strive to do is really going to get embedded in the building. And I can go on, but we're going to have some other opportunities. So hopefully this late I answered that question. Is there a follow-up to that?
Yeah, in speaking to other people regarding this building, they're asking what is a 5-6 building, and I'm wondering if this parent is asking, how she specifically said, what does this do for my kindergartner? And I don't know that a lot of people understand that this is a school for all of the 5th grades from all the surrounding elementary schools, as well as pulling out. So I think she might also want to know that it's going to provide more room in the elementary schools and middle school, therefore allowing more space to that.
Absolutely, and thank you. And really the high level, the reason we chose the 5-6 configuration is the crowding of what we're seeing in both our 4 elementary schools and our middle school. And so we went through a variety of scenarios as how do we best alleviate this. So the removal of 5th grade from all 4 elementaries alleviates the crowding. And our middle school, which is probably the most densely populated of our current 6 schools, taking 6th grade out moves a third of the students, and that allows for a lot of growth. So it really was a design to alleviate crowding in the building, but at the same token, it made such a strong sense developmentally because we view 5th and 6th grade as really formative years. And so to have a structure that is very flexible, collaborative, and communal, we think is really going to set our students up for success as they venture into the secondary school. So I appreciate the elaboration and the clarification.
The next couple of questions are related to outside space. Families are looking for information about progress on the KD Markley playground and what alternative
I think it's a great question. I know a lot of families and kids have questions about that. A couple of situations. One, first of all, it's great that we're going to have a playground sooner than we expected. And that playground's going to be amazing. Designed, we had community come in to help with the picking out equipment for it. We didn't think it was going to be until late fall. It sounds like it's going to be more mid-fall. That's fantastic. So in the meantime, we're going to go through a little bit of a growth. Over the summer, myself and the PE department have been developing manuals of play for the hardtop service, bus load. We have equipment that will be rotated out throughout the week, so it's not the same equipment every time. It's not just balls. There'll be painted objects on the ground, like four squares. There's basketballs. There's also just different fun activities as well. We also are cutting in a path within the 7 acres for a walk for kids as well. So there's going to be a rotation of activity happening. I know it's not ideal for every student, but I think we're going to have enough variety available to kids that they'll be engaged, they'll be safe, and they'll have fun with that social interaction, which is really important to me. Part of the playground whole atmosphere is about social appropriate interaction, and that's really what we want to try to do. You can do that in the playground, you can also do that on the hard surface. We do that when the rain comes or when there's snow, we have to go on a hard top anyway. So it's not an unusual space to have kids. There are some areas that we talked about, which I will be talking more about with kindergarten, first, and second grade. They have like a 10-minute recess during their days. That you can see there is some green area out there that we're going to allow them to have access to. It's safe, it's fenced in, it's a good barrier, it's big enough to have that kind of a time frame. So we'll be talking to our teachers about what would appropriate space look like for that as well. So there would be some grass area in the form of that trail. There'd be some grass areas and some recording area. But overall, I feel like we have a safe space within the bus. It's a very big space. Again, we have manuals, and to follow up on that, actually, that's part of our opening day with our teachers. We're going to be having recess. We're going to show the manuals. We're going to teach them how to run games. I've asked the PTO if they'd be involved with this as well to help learn how to play, simple games like Game in the Air, or like different types of different activities that we probably all play, but without a playground. I think that's just good for all kids anyway. So I'm really excited about the space. I'm excited about the creativity of it, and even more importantly, the fact that we're going to have an amazing playground soon than we thought. It's just icing on the cake.
I think there's a follow-up to that.
Yeah.
I know that it sounds like it's pretty recent, that 7-acre parcel. Is there any thought as to what that will become?
I'll probably let Dan about what you're expecting it to be. I know there's been some plans of putting some field use in there as well. I know there's a trail also going through, but I think we have to go through a process through the township about what can actually be placed in there. But would you like to speak on it?
And which space did you indicate exactly?
The 7 acres.
Yeah, so as you look at the 7 acres, there will be the trail, which will kind of transcend all the more distant tree line. Additionally, right off the back of KD Markley School, there is going to be a large grass playing area. It will be level, it will be grass. It will be pretty close to like a regulation type soccer field, but it's not going to be full-fledged, like it's not going to be all the bells and whistles of a fully designed soccer field, but it will allow for some green space and play for the children. Which again, I felt when we were able to acquire that property, it was just a tremendous enhancement to the field. So I know as a principal, having more room for the kids to play is going to be wonderful. So expect right off that KD Markley flank there, you'll see that large flat green space, and then along the trail. And then in the lower part, a lot of that vegetation is going to remain. So that's the plan of where it stands now. We'll continue to update as work progresses.
In terms of timing on that, when do you think along the project will you be able to access something like that?
The question is, when might we be able to access, you mean the flat grass playing area? I'm not quite sure whether Mr. Trader or Mr. Schwartz can help you with that one. They'll be more in tune with the timeline, so thank you for posing that. Looks like Mr. Trader's working his way over.
Yeah, so as Dr. Grafredo stated, that is going to have to go through an approval process just like the project did. The expectation is that's probably a 4-month approval process. So we're into probably the end of the year before it's approved. Then we'll bid it, and then we'll start the construction process. It kind of coincide with the end of the construction of this project. So it won't be during construction, unfortunately, but it will be one giant site by the time it's all finished, and we'll have all these amenities ready for the kids.
So the last set of questions, I think you gave me, they're related to Clark Field. People want to know when the stormwater basins will be completed and construction fencing removed, and when will Clark Field be restored to pre-construction conditions?
Thank you. So, when we looked at doing this, we knew we were going to have to cut across Clark Field with that pipe for stormwater. We were really thoughtful about it. And there was really nothing that we could do about coming through here, but what we could do was try not to mess up the whole field. And then try and get the work in so that this fall we can plant grass, so that as we go through this fall, next spring, and next summer, perhaps next fall, that field is back and restored. What we're going to look at doing after the fall goes away and after this is kind of planted in here where it's been used for construction and dug up, we're going to look at putting fencing in here to potentially turn some of that over as a play area, not necessarily as a proper field. And we may be able to do that in 2 locations. That's something that's currently under review by the district. Again, it goes with the idea of we're going to do the best we can to take away fencing and barriers, to reveal play areas or places that we can be safely, while all the time doing our best to give back space to KD Markley kids and KD Markley programs. So that's really what we're looking at, getting some of it back maybe later in this fall, but and certainly next spring, but not having that whole field back probably until the fall of 2023.
So those were our questions that were sent prior. I'd like to just open it up to general questions that you may have. It's very important to us that we give you answers to them.
I'm a parent and a neighbor. My house is actually on that previous one. For the 7-acre property, if you're tearing down the house, currently there's a big pile of rubble in front of it. Are you going to be storing debris and rubble there after you take the house down, or is it going to be removed from the site? And then second question is, what about like the well or the septic system of that house? Are they going to be filled in and will be safe after the house is down?
David?
Thank you. We will take debris off the site, so there's not going to be a pile. And I grew up near one of those where somebody tore a farmhouse down and there was a pile of bricks. And strangely enough, I never got hurt on that pile of bricks. But I certainly recognize that that's a concern. And I'm glad you asked that because that's a brand new thought process and question. So we're going to take everything out of there as we tear that down. We will be taking out anything to do with septic or sealing that off so there isn't a septic or main there. Obviously, I don't know of any of us that would think that might be a good idea to leave there. In terms of the well, typically what happens is we'll dig down a certain degree with that well and then cap it and then cover it up so this poses no danger. But yeah, we're going to be looking at all those things, and all that will happen before everything is kind of opened up to everybody. However, I think to your point in the current situation, is that house is going down, we're going to have to fence around it, or we're going to have to do what we need to do to make sure all that area is safe. So I'll be working on that with Skylar, and I think that's a great question because that's not something that's come up. Thank you.
And I do believe as we're on that property, that the drive will remain because as I referenced just a moment ago, we may have a large green space and if we ever need to get an emergency vehicle there, that drive could be an egress to the field. So I do believe that will be retained. Am I correct? I'm getting some nods from our team. So that'll be there. That driveway will not be removed, but that can be used as an emergency access point if needed. Right? Yeah.
Thank you. So once the center is ready, the 5-6 center, when the kids start moving out, like the 5th and 6th grade, what would you do with the available space that opens up in the elementary school? Do you plan to reduce the spread of the class or add more kids?
So your question is after we make the move and students leave 5th grade and enter the new facility and 6th grade comes out, as we looked at our enrollment projections, we are projected to still continue growing beyond the opening of the 5-6 center. So right now our KD Markley is one of our more populated schools, as is General Wayne. And even we're seeing some growth in Sugartown and in Charlestown. So although we're going to be extracting an entire grade, some of the growth is going to fill in. We are projecting additional classes as we grow. So that's why we view this as a short and a long-term solution. One, we have some crowding right now, which in 2 years this is going to alleviate, but it gives us room to add in all 4 of our elementary schools and our middle school that we can grow. So we are, I know this is being recorded, but I think it's very likely that we're going to need to build or do any other major renovated work after 2 years from now when this building opens up. So that's where I say that it's more of a long-term solution as well as a short-term. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Sir?
Thank you. I think I talked about this last time as well, and Damien pointed out, this is a really great learning opportunity for the kids. One of the reasons I became an engineer is because I love watching buildings go up. So I don't know if we have there are any more plans around, having this be more of a structure, bring the kids in, watch the buildings go up, especially with the steel coming in, kind of towards the end of this year, October, November. That's a great opportunity to learn about all kinds of STEM stuff as we do it kind of real time. So I don't know if there are any plans or we're still thinking about it.
We totally agree. I don't know, David, are you able to speak to that a little bit? You have experience doing this with district?
So one of the things that we do at SiteLogic is we like to go through those programs at all sorts of different levels. One of the things that we talked about when we got hired by Great Valley was how do we take some of what's happening here and allow that to be seen in the curriculum, whether it's something that is taught on a grade school level that affects the KD Markley kids, or is it something that somehow is incorporated into STEM at the middle school, high school level. But we're going to look at doing that, and I think that you're right. Really, there's some neat stuff that happens with earthwork, but it's a little bit difficult to see. It's kind of easier to see in pictures sometimes and talk about than actually seeing it on site. But when steel's going up, if we're taking videos of that, or if we happen to have over certain days that there are field trips for classes or what have you, those are things that we've done in a lot of districts. So while I can tell you that we kind of stand ready to do that and have some ideas, we are just now kind of getting to the place where we've been in a big rush to get out to bid, get things priced, make sure we are at budget, and start and get through the summer. And now that we have a moment to take a breath, it's time to look at curriculum and start to do that in the fall. I think you're dead on. That steel erection is going to be one of the best things that you're going to be able to see out here. So we're going to be looking at that. I think it's just a matter of talking to the folks here about curriculum and taking the lead with Dr. Fredo as we go through that process. Thank you. Very cool.
And certainly with our teachers coming back next week, they're going to have ideas, suggestions, so we'll certainly want to engage them. But it's an opportunity that many districts don't ever get to experience, so we certainly want to be the most of it. So thank you for doing that. Additional question?
The current fencing around the property seems to be around the perimeter of the property, keeping people off. This slide looks like there's a different purpose when school comes back. Can you maybe address that? Is there going to be double fencing for the school and still the exterior fencing for the property, or house fencing going to be shifted in the schools in the school?
So as of right now, I'm not aware of any plans immediately to take the fence around the property away. And I'm not sure that that's really going to change in the future. That fence, while it keeps people off the property, it doesn't necessarily it's not as exclusionary as what we're looking at here. Because what we're looking at in red is keep the kids in here, keep the construction out there.
So that's a secondary fence.
So this is a secondary fence so that kids in construction are separated. So not only do we have that, but as I was saying, if we need to start putting up fabric on the fence so that, you know, little Damien's not sitting in class watching the trucks go around, that may happen too. We're going to be really thoughtful about that. The other things that we're doing that we didn't talk about were when there is standardized testing or certain things that are going on. While a lot of this construction noise to date hasn't been too bad, we suspend certain construction operations so that children are not distracted during those test times. And there'll be other accommodations that I'm sure Dr. Hoffitz will ask for on occasion, and we're going to work around that, really to make sure that kids can see that there's something neat going out there, but they can't get anywhere close to it, and it's not disturbing what's happening inside the building for education.
Other questions? Sir?
Just related to fences, obviously with the trail going by, I'm sure it goes without saying, but this form of say like security of kids. I mean, I see most people on the trail, they look like they're just exercising, but with the trail coming that close and it's public access mandated by the township, probably a lot more to do, but if you want to speak to any type of security measures you're discussing or fencing, natural borders, right, because the teachers try to watch the kids, but they can't watch them all the time, so just if you could speak to where that might be.
And there's several layers to that. We have discussed it. One is certainly having line of sight. So as we have students that start to move into the 7-acre parcel, there are a lot of trees there. Now we want to preserve a lot of natural vegetation, but we also have to balance that with making sure we have line of sight. So I think that's at the most fundamental of levels. So we certainly already had discussions with that. As the trail is kind of being proposed, it has been discussed about whether or not fencing needs to be on one side of the trail, and that would be in between the trail and the KDM property. Nothing's been determined yet, and there's still a lot of work to be had, but those discussions have already occurred, and I suspect are going to be ongoing. So we certainly want to maintain that. We understand the security concerns. That's partly why myself as superintendent, I would prefer that the trail not be on our property at all. For those variety of reasons, but we are part of a larger community. There's other needs that need to be met, and we certainly want to be partners in that, but not at the expense of safety. So these are all things that are being discussed, and I think during the course of this year, as those approval processes continue to move through the township levels, you'll see more and more on that, and we'll be sure to convey those to as decisions are being made. So not a whole lot of direct answer for you now, but just know that the very things you framed are all discussion items. Thank you. Additional questions? Yes.
Is there going to be an elevator in the 5-6 center?
I believe so. We want to Mr. Schrader speak to that. We have some large ramps and let's let our master designer comment on that.
Yeah, that's great. So the building is kind of interesting in that the intent is, if you go back to the other one, the intent is this portion of the building is roughly halfway between the lower floor and the upper floor. So there's a set of ramps that go up and down from the main structure here. But in addition to that, there's also an elevator in the 2-story structure going up and down from that point. So there are a whole series of means of access throughout the building for mobility. Yeah.
I'm getting my steps in today. Other questions?
If there's a evening activity at both the 5-6 center and the elementary school, is there enough parking for everyone? And what's the overflow? Is it over on that field?
Principal.
So the same thing with the high school and middle school. There's a lot of communication that happens until both those things. We really try not to have any kind of events that are cross-pollinating for those reasons. You know what it's like already. When we have our open houses here, how full it is. So we would work with the other principals to make sure our calendars are coordinated for not to reduce from that happening. Good question.
We we understand the need on campus to not overflow. So our principals are going to have to communicate.
Yeah, we're excited to use the facility, I'll tell you.
I live on that road that's on the upper right corner. We're worried that people are gonna park there to come over, and because there's not enough overflow parking.
Yeah. So we'll be, one more should comment again.
To be honest, I'm actually really excited about 5-6 to use some of the facilities that KD Markley can benefit from. So it's going to be a benefit for this whole campus to have in there. But yeah, again, the idea is to stop that overflow. Into some of the neighborhoods, we know people are parking on the street. But with the amount of parking that we have addition that's been added on, as Damien said, there's a lot more parking now available that we don't typically have.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And Ms. Blake, our Director of Communications, will talk a little bit about how you can stay in touch with us and get updates.
So I'm not sure if any of you are signed up yet to receive our monthly construction updates. It's just an e-newsletter, goes out, it sort of highlights what's currently happening on the site, what you can expect to see in the next few weeks, and then any special information that we might need to include. So far, it's just sort of been a sampling of construction photos and links to our website. If you are not signed up and you want to receive those updates, I make no assumptions of sending more email to anyone. So I invite you to sign up if you would like to. You can do that on our website at gbsd.org/56center. If you don't want to sign up to receive the newsletter directly, every month it is posted on that site, as well as additional updates and lots of photos. So there's also links for more information if you have questions. There's a team of us that look at that email regularly to make sure we're getting back to people quickly. And if you have any suggestions or ideas about how we can communicate with you or engage you in this process further, I'd love to hear them. I'm always open for that sort of brainstorming. So stay involved with us. We like to see you here and we'd like to know that you're interacting with us.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
I don't know who's in charge of the landscaping part of this project, but I'm personally becoming a master gardener and wondering, will we be using maybe plants? Some plants currently became invasive as far as Pennsylvania is concerned, and so if they are native, they technically can never be considered invasive and therefore not required to be removed at any time. And so I guess I want to know if that's being considered as well.
And I know as we went through the approval process with East Whiteland Township, we spent a good deal of time on the vegetation plan and the preservation of trees and species. So, Mr. Chair, can you elaborate on that?
So I can help a little bit because we're not the landscape architects, but they worked under us. And so we have landscape architects satisfying all of the code requirements for what had to be where, how much buffer, and so on. They work back and forth with township consultants on what the appropriate plantings were. I think what you'll end up seeing more is you'll end up seeing more trees than you will shrubbery and low bushes. We do like to have as much line of sight as we can for the kids around the site. They are intended to be native, and the appropriate native means for the kinds of plantings that we have here. So we can probably supply, I know it's available, the actual landscape plan if it's of interest to you. So we'll be happy to do that. Yeah.
So we can look to see and get that onto that website. But there was a good deal of discussion. I can tell you, East Whiteland Township, we have a lot of discussion about trees, and I believe, am I accurate in saying that this entire campus will probably plus 100 trees when all is said and done? So a lot of focus on trees, but also other aspects. So more to come, and we'll see if we can get that plan on our website. Thank you. One question into that? Thank you.
Is there a design for the playground available for us to see, like what's going to be coming in?
Okay, great. So the question is there a design for our playground? There is. I don't know if we have that slide readily available. I've seen some renditions. Let us work on that, but there is a vision for that, and we'll work to get that entry. If you can give us a little bit of time and check our website, maybe that's something we can get up there. It will not be identical to the rendering, but I think we can give people some general context. It was
the same basic thing.
Yes. Yeah. So it is pretty equal in size. It will have some rubber matting, I believe, which will make it much more accessible for all students. So it's definitely going to be a very nice and appropriate playground. So we'll work on getting that. Let's make sure we get rid of that.
And inclusive, very inclusive.
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. Yes, we did reference exactly what it will be. Other questions? Well, I appreciate it, and thank you so much for being generous with the last hour and coming in and engaging us and asking questions. So please, as Ms. Blake said, check out our website, sign up for the newsletter if you haven't. I know Dr. Hoppers will continue with his newsletters and updates. You have an email. Pretty much most of us in this room get those emails that go to the 5-6 Center. And so help us to better help you and to make this process enjoyable and also, more importantly, beneficial for our students. So thank you all. Some of us will stay if you have some last minute questions, but